This is going to be a great video. We're going to discuss there is biolabs that have come up in America that we're paying for. One congressman exposes it. No one even talks about it. But then there's also another study showing Las Vegas, Arizona, California, so many other states that have these biological labs that have dangers to them. We're going to discuss that because is that the next pandemic waiting to happen? It kind of goes along with something that is so sinister and evil. Back in 2017, 2018, Mr. Bill Gates, he goes and he talks to all these bad players. We realize he's not really the best player. He's got deep friends that are kind of dangerous, kind of like Epstein. But you know what's so crazy? Is an email correspondence between them both talking about just what we just said. Talked about leaks from biolabs and a pandemic that could possibly come during the Trump administration. Isn't it weird that it absolutely takes place after one of the biggest players that looks like an intelligence that's got some of the biggest blackmail cover on everybody just expose someone who has been speaking of a pandemic. We're going to discuss that and a sickness that has been elevated because of what is going on. Why are they not arresting these people? It's unbelievable. Also, we're going to discuss what Nicki Minaj said. Again, not the biggest conservative juggernaut, but what you don't want to miss is she throws shade on a few people in Hollywood that's doing the same thing as what was exposed in the files and lists. We're going to discuss what she said because this is coming from someone who's got a monster following. She's saying, you know what, I'm tired of what's going on. Let's expose it. We're going to discuss all of this along with a few comments from Congress. And are we really seeing civil unrest move to war? Are we going to see a division in our nation? Wait till you hear this story from someone who knows the markets better than anyone, a juggernaut when it comes to understanding history. And he said, we're repeating history. And right now we're looking at the face of a divided nation. Let's dive into these stories because it does affect you. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for coming back each and every day to watch our channel, and hope our content is uplifting but also teaches you something, and hopefully you gain some wisdom out of it and some common sense, because one thing I try to show every video is how important it is to take care of your family. Now let's jump into the stories of the day because some of these are unbelievable. First, let's talk about these biolabs. I want you to listen to what Kevin Kiley said, Representative Kevin Kiley, and then it's going to jump into another story dealing with an exposure by an investigative journalist. This is from Representative Kevin Kiley, again, a U.S. representative for the United States, and he is based out of California. I want you to listen to this. An illegal biolab was just raided in Vegas. It is directly linked to a secret Chinese lab found in California from 2023, which was oozing E. coli, HIV, and malaria. Why has Congress not passed a bill to ban and shut down these labs, and not only that, to arrest the people that are starting these labs? Now you're thinking, why would we not arrest these people? Why is this guy standing on the floor of the Senate and Congress and the House of Representatives stating that we are allowing this to take place, where they are allowing for the spread and mutation of all these viruses and disease in these biolabs? Now, this goes along with the story of the actual what broke dealing with this biolab. It says, biolab alert. This is happening right before your very eyes in America. This is from MJ Truth. It says, illegal biolabs laboratories discovered in Las Vegas. Residents are known to be in the area where it can intend to spread biological material that could cause damage. Linked to prior California cases, over 1,000 samples collected for testing. On Saturday, January 31st, 2026, a joint Las Vegas Police Department, SWAT, FBI, HAZMAT, and other agencies executed a search warrant for a place in northeast Las Vegas. It says that what they did was they found that there was possible biological laboratory experiments and evidence, primarily to a locked garage in refrigeration containing so many unknown liquids that they were looking to spread, an intent to spread. Possible biological materials and hazardous materials could be the dangers, even pathological labels containing labels such as certain fevers, dengue fever, HIV, malaria, and several other major spreaders. Specialized teams are handling the recovery mitigation to ensure no public risk. Now, let's just stop just for a second. They were building enough contaminants meant to spread. When you think about that, that's how severe when we talk about prepping and making sure you're prepared for anything that comes our way is. Because what we've realized, there is some crazy people that have I don't know, through propaganda, through evil, through demonic ways, whatever it may be, that is wanting to harm others, even in America. This happened in Las Vegas. It said it was tied to places in California, tied to places in Arizona. What are we doing allowing for these places to be able to operate? Again, think about the money we waste. We talked about this yesterday. The money we waste, we're wasting $700 million just to give to Somalia through cash suitcases daily for 2 years. We've given several hundred billion of waste to all these places, including the African place, USAID, where we're funneling all this money to the Democrat Party. And yet, we can't even have enough money for these police departments to shut down biolabs. And we're allowing this to not be surveilled. It's amazing that I can type one thing and everybody knows about it in a millisecond when I post it, but then we can't find biolabs, especially when they already had 1,000 different samples of contaminants. Now, think about that. That took a lot of time. That wasn't just, oh, we just started this lab yesterday. And then on top of that, it's linked to China. It's linked to other biolabs that they've already shut down. Tell me why we're allowing this to take place. How dangerous is a chance for another biological warfare or pandemic? Now, that leads me to something that's even more grossly sinister, because we know how bad Epstein was. We kind of starting to realize that Gates is probably just as bad, and why he's not arrested. He's going to keep on going free, still be part of his philanthropy, still sit on boards and never get in trouble for it. But I want you to listen to what was just shared. Because we're talking about pathology, we're talking about all the risks, we're talking about all the danger. Listen to this. Oh my goodness. This was shared, quote, preparing for a pandemic. This was an email between Bill Gates, Epstein, and leaders of the WHO. It says, there's something about trying to pull off what could be the steps of a pandemic. Now, here's what they were talking about. They were like, well, this deals with when we were doing the chance of learning how to deal with the pandemic. That's kind of what they said. Well, this is dealing with that exercise 201. You remember that? What we were trying to do was say, okay, what would we do in these pandemics? Now, this email was actually back in March of 2015. It states, please find the draft agenda for the meeting preparing for pandemics as requested. Let's discuss the next steps of examples of where officials involved in the WHO and the ICRC can have the best ways to pull this off. Now, if you remember, when Trump got elected in 2016, it was like 2017, Fauci came out and said, I believe that Trump will see a pandemic. Okay, wait. Now, we have evil billionaires who are tied to some very sinister stuff now telling you 10 years ago that they were going to start a pandemic. And for some reason, we allow him to be the face of the pandemic and also make extra billions off the pandemic. And we wonder why this guy's not in prison. Not only that, so the scientists, the people behind him, and all of a sudden we find out that Epstein actually funded a lot of this science and this technology. Now, 10 years later, we've went through one 2020 situation that blew up our whole economy, destroyed so much of people's lives, and put us in piles of debt with the last pandemic. And then all of a sudden now you're telling me that this guy 10 years later is still walking around, still giving health advice, and now he's even tied to some even more evil things once we found out the list and files yesterday? Now, I got to be honest with you. Why in the world has this guy not been arrested? Now, the point of what I'm telling you is not the fact that I'm saying there is another one coming. It's not the fact that I'm saying that everybody knew and the government knew. I'm saying this. When we know the dangers are right there, we saw what was planning 10 years ago, a decade ago, and it took a few years to happen, and all of a sudden they did it. And now we hear about all these biolabs that we're busting. Yesterday and the day before now. We're talking about current time. This is not just 10 years ago. So we've been dealing with this kind of warfare for 10 years, and then on top of that, now we're dealing with it right before our very eyes, and they're busting it in several western states, and it's tied to China. Now, we're going to go a little bit deeper in the story because we're going to talk about what Nicki Minaj says. But before we do, a word from today's sponsor. Have you looked at your retirement accounts? Have you seen what you're paying at the grocery? Have you seen what your insurance costs? Now, on paper, you may say, well, I'm saving some money. I'm putting some dollars up. I'm putting some money in retirement. And it may look okay. It may say, well, hey, there's a little growth there. That's been good. But think about this. Whatever money you've put up since 2020, because the way our government has worked, because of inflation, because of cost, it's lost 22% of its buying power. So have you saved enough to cover the loss of what the dollar bills have cost you, of what the stock market has cost you, what inflation and interest has cost you? Sadly, I really think our dollars are just robbing us blind. That's why today's sponsor is so important. How many times have I told you about gold and silver and precious metals? Today's sponsor is Augusta Precious Metals. They've been helping Americans for over a decade save and diversify. Not in gold certificates, not in gold stocks, not in all this paper stuff, but in true gold and true precious metals. I mean, the Congress is loving to spend money. The stock market's going up and down. Crypto's going up and down. But what has actually done well and what is still growing? Gold. When the Fed tells you that gold and silver are not important, when the government's not trying to correct the problem of overspending and blowing your money and interest and inflation's going up, that means gold will keep climbing. Here's the sad part. Most retirement accounts are tied to 100% of the stock market. That means tied to 100% of the inflation, the interest, the dollar. That's not good. Diversification is key when it comes to your savings. I want to make sure that I have redundancy. I tell you this all the time. I want to make sure that my money is doing and playing on a lot of different fields. Why not take part in that to diversify yourself a little bit and buy some gold? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to maxlovesgold.com or text the number below. Augusta has a A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Get some information on building an IRA based on gold. So that way when the dollar's going down and you're worried about the interest and inflation and Congress spending all your money, you can watch the diversity help you and gold will keep on going up. I want to make sure that when I get to the retirement age that I've got some value. Well, if you see what the dollar's doing and the losing of the value of it, I want to make sure that I have something else. Gold and silver is the answer. Go to maxlovesgold.com, text the number below, so Augusta can help you. You can get some information. It's free to get the information and see if it's right for you. When we talk about growing food, or we talk about sustainability, or we talk about real money like gold and silver, the whole point of it is, it's not to say you're going to get rich off of. It's to give you the peace of mind to know that your money is safe, that the value of what you've worked so hard for is not losing. Let's not just put all our money in the stock market or in cash. Check out maxlovesgold.com. Augusta Precious Metals is a game changer, and let them walk you through. It's no sales pitch, no crazy things. It's going to give you true information that can help you make sure the money you've worked hard for, it's going to be always money that you can have and you can pass down to your children hopefully one day. Check with maxlovesgold.com. Do not miss out on this opportunity because it's not stopping. Go check out Augusta Precious Metals today. Link in the description. Guys, when we talk about prepping and we talk about the dangers of the markets and dangers of everything going on, I kid you not, gold and silver are some of the best investments you will make. If you're not buying food and self-defense, you better be buying gold and silver, because the one things that have been proven to be worth something over all the years have been those. If you got some money to move around, you need to. Now, we're going to jump into the Nicki Minaj story, but I want to bring this up because this is very important because it deals with the advertisement that we just had. There was a post done by an individual on Twitter. He was an investigative journalist. He said, by the time I'm 65, over $600,000 I have paid to Social Security on my behalf. That money in a typical, S&P fund would have been worth $1.9 million. My annual interest would have been at 5%, which is way less than what the stock market's doing at $95,000. The government promises $3,075 a month for that same amount, which is $37,000 a year. It says, how in the world is this not theft? Now, the reason I want to bring that up, and the reason I want to nail in on this, is because when we think we're going to be okay because we have Social Security or cash, or we're going to be okay because the stock market's okay, we're going to be okay because we believe these companies are good. Some of the biggest companies in the world 20 years ago are not in existence anymore. Sears, Roebuck, IBM, some of those WorldCom, some of those were some of the biggest players, and we thought they always had it and we're going to retire on those. And all of a sudden we realized they're all belly up now. There's new companies like Tesla and NVIDIA. All those are great companies, but guess what? 20 years they may not be here. What has been a fail-safe for so long? Gold and silver. Now, I digress. I just want people to understand the value of gold and silver. Check with Augusta, by the way. Now, let's jump into what Nicki Minaj says, because this is so serious. Not that I believe that Nicki Minaj has all the right answers, but there was something she said while she was with the president. When they talked about her and made fun of her at the Grammys, Chrissy Teigen, which is John Legend, which is tied to some deep, dark stuff dealing with Jay-Z and P. Diddy and all that stuff, all those circles, file list, all that. Almost said, they were glad that she wasn't there. I want you to listen to what Nicki Minaj says. Now again, someone who has millions upon millions upon millions of followers. You don't have to respect her music. I don't respect her music. Listen to this. Your favorite artists have been practicing rituals in satanic cults where they take babies in other countries and mutilate and harm them for blood sacrifices to their god. You see that their master is Satan. You must constantly stand against this. The jig is up because we're exposing it. Now, for someone of this caliber, this is not some random person on Twitter. This is someone who is in the in, who knows what's going on. She's one of the biggest followers, I think, on Instagram. And you tell me she does not know the ins and outs of the music industry, especially being probably one of the biggest rappers of all time? She is exposing it. What she's saying is, I'm sick and tired of what these people are showing. This list, these files, all this corruption, this depravity, it's all based on spiritual evil. Bill Gates, evil. Epstein, evil. Can we not see all this has the same problem? It's good versus evil. Now, does that mean Trump and Nicki Minaj are on the good side? I'm not going to judge them. I think they're doing good exposing this kind of stuff. But here's the thing. Here is the thing. Look at what they're talking about. Think about what happened with the last administration, how they're missing all these people from trafficking. Think about all the situations that you've seen with how we've given all this money to waste, fraud, and abuse, and we've done nothing about it. Think about the depravity we've already heard from the files and list from some of the biggest players in the world right now. And yet, nothing is done. Think about the fact that what we just talked about, 2015, the exposure of the fact that they were planning for something to take place that happened in 2020, and yet those people are still walking around giving health advice. We are living in very, very tough times. An individual reached out to me because, I told you that my son, and if you're following his journey, type 1 diabetes, I've been trying to stockpile insulin because of all the situation. And people's reached out, so thank you so much. I humbly thank you for all the people that's reached out and helped us and given us avenues and prayed for us. But there was one lady, and it broke my heart. And she's nowhere near me. She lives in Tennessee. And she showed a picture on Facebook, and man, it gets me emotional because I'm living through it. She said, I'm down to my last vial for my child of insulin. Please, someone help me. Is there anybody that can get insulin to me? Because all of the pharmacies are still shut down. And they said that we're going to be out for weeks. So I've got to travel somehow to get my kid insulin. Now, the reason I want to bring that up, the reason we talk about the gold and silver, the reason we talk about stockpiling is because that's how serious everything is right now. A storm could cause problems, grid could cause problems, AI could cause problems, world events could cause problems. The fact that this next story that we're going to touch on, the guy's saying we're seeing what history's shown starts before a civil war for a nation. It's so divided, it's so evil, and there's no agreement. Therefore, it's going to cause for a disagreement and upheaval. The reason I tell you to stockpile and buy and put up gold and silver, look, right behind you. We've got all this stockpile of food, but look, we've got a whole thing of soap that we've made just because we want to make sure we have everything that we need. We have canning shelves full of canning. We have seeds right behind that. We have all this food. The whole purpose of what we do is because anything thrown our way from the biolabs, and all of a sudden one breaks out and something just spares off from the evil of the big players, from the evil of some of the governments, all this stuff, we're just one step away from it. Now, I hate when people look at me and they're like, oh, all you do is whine. I'm not whining. I'm just trying to tell you the truth of what could happen. This winter storm knocked out North Mississippi and some of Tennessee. They said they will be out for weeks. Well, if you're dependent on a pharmacy or a grocery store and you had nothing, guess what you're doing? You're panicking. They're actually bringing in FEMA and Homeland Security to help try to find ways for people to get water, food, and medicine. Do you want to be in that boat? I don't. So when we talk about all this upheaval, we talk about all this unrest, and we talk about the depravity of what we've learned, and we're not doing anything about it, times are not going to get easier. Times are fixing to get even tougher, because I believe you're going to see, and I said this the other day, there was a billionaire interviewed. He said, something big will happen because they have to distract you. This is too much evil and too much exposure. He said, you wait. Something big is going to happen because it's going to take your mind off of it. He said, it's going to be an Iran attack. It's going to be something else. Something's going to explode. Some big earthquake, some big hurricane, some big ice storm. He said, the market's going to fall out. Something is going to happen. He said, because you're not going to allow this. This government's not going to allow for this much exposure. And the world's elites are not going to allow for this much exposure without trying to distract you. That's scary, because we have billionaires planning next pandemics. And we just busted biolabs. Pretty big deal. I'm going to end with this little story that we just kind of discussed. This is from Zero Hedge, and it was actually wrote by Brandon Smith of Alt Market. It says, "What we're seeing is the time that we may have to accept Civil War 2.0. He said it's already started. We can't actually see, but if you go back in history and look at how things were done all the way throughout history, he said we're seeing the telltale signs of a nation divided that will not come along and grow together." And he said, sadly, upheaval is just going to add to unrest. Unrest is going to add to war. Again, the whole point of our channel is to make you realize you need to be ready for anything. From another pandemic to literally the dangers of just the depravity of our nation. And as that guy said, how dangerous, how close, how very close are we to simple upheaval that makes war? We're very close. Because we have a nation that's completely divided. I mean, Chuck Schumer just said he's going to shut down the government because he don't want to pass the SAVE Act, which deals with voters and deal with making sure people that have voters are the ones that have driver's license. Now, you can't go to buy a cigarette, you can't go buy a beer, you can't do anything without a license. You can't even get energy turned on, you can't buy a cell phone. But you're telling me that they make it hard and they don't want you to have a license to vote? See, so half of your government is willing to shut itself down and keep giving to fraud and hurt people and harm people, and ultimately to say they want illegals to vote. That's where we're at in the nation. We're to a point where there is no agreement, and that's what scares me, and that's what this guy was talking about. We're that close, that close. If something sparks off, if all of a sudden a big leak comes from one of these biolabs, if all of a sudden something big happens because they want to distract you, are you ready? Focus on being ready. Focus on gold and silver. Focus on medicines. Look, if you look in the link below, Jace Medical, I'm buying Jace daily to get that insulin for a year. I'm going through the steps right now of that. I've called to a local pharmacist and bought with cash, no insurance, saying, hey, what would it cost me to buy it? I've called my doctor and got extra insulin because I want to be ready. This is throwing me for a loop because that's a lot more dependency than I ever thought I'd have with medicine, because I never had anybody on medicine. Now I do, so therefore I'm very, very conscientious of what's going on around me. If you are vulnerable in some way, you better be doing the same. Prepare, guys. Pray for our nation. It needs it more than anything. If we don't turn back to Christ, it's going to get worse. Let me know your thoughts on today's video. God bless.